had very, very, very deep, very strong visitations from Sushant. I could not sleep for almost 4 days. He was just there.
So his spirit first tried to connect with you, and it compelled you to connect with his sister.
Either I get visions or then I'm hearing.
So was it through astral travel that you went into this space?
He took me through an astral traveling process very early, and it was like a state of hypnotherapy.
How does this Akashic Records operate? What is this concept of starseed?
So starseeds are basically souls who've originated in another galaxy, on another planet or another starseed. I could literally see Shiva 100 feet, 60 feet just coming in front of me.
She was the youngest Reiki master at age 13. Her Reiki guru helped activate her third eye chakra. She can tap into your Akashic records and know your karmic details and karmic patterns. And she happens to be one of the most authentic psychics we have in the country. I welcome Dr. Tamanna C on my podcast. Thank you so much for making it finally.
Thank you for having me. It was meant to be in person and not online.
I guess so, because she was one of the first psychics I wanted to be on my podcast. She would have been, I think, perhaps last year.
Yeah, last year.
But it just got so prolonged that probably it was meant to be today.
Yes.
So here she is. And before me, I think we planned our podcast, but you appeared on some other podcast before mine.
Yes.
So a lot of questions have already been answered, but yet I want to make this a little different from what people may have already seen her speaking about. Let's hope.
Yes.
Firstly, I want to give a little bit of background, how I got to know about Tamanna ji. Sushant Singh Rajput's sister, Shweta Singh Kirti, was here, and before her podcast, I was speaking to her about, certain experiences that she's had, some people that she has met, like psychics, in order to discover what really happened with Sushant Singh Rajput. And she happened to mention Dr. Tamanna C. Dr. Tamanna actually narrated or told her about an incident that had occurred between her and Sushant in their childhood on a terrace, where there was something like a fire breakout, accidental fire breakout that had happened between the two kids who were playing together. And this is something that only she knew. And there was no possibility that anybody else could have told her, which you apparently told her about.
I did, and I'm actually getting goosebumps because I have, I've had Shweta, I've had great interactions with her. We were in touch for almost 6 months after Sushant passed away. And it's something that I've never really candidly even spoken about it. But I had very, very, very deep, very strong visitations from Sushant. I could not sleep for almost 4 days. He was just there. And then I kind of somehow got someone's number, and then there were so many messages that I were meant to reach out to Shweta, and I got her number, and I've never really done that, right? Because the thumb rule is, you don't intervene in someone's life till the time they don't come asking for help, right? So today, I'm not just going to pick up somebody's message walking on the road being like, this spirit wants to give you a message. But I could feel such a strong push, and it was 24 hours constantly for more than 4 to 6 days that I had to reach out for my own sanity. So yeah, it was a lovely interaction, and we did share a lot of back and forth information about Sushant, his life, whatever that transpired during his last few days after that. So yeah.
So his spirit first tried to connect with you, and it compelled you to connect with his sister. Where did this happen exactly? Where were you?
I was in Bombay, and that was during COVID.
Okay.
I've seen his movies, maybe perhaps few, you know, but no, I was never like a big fan of his work because I'm not a movie buff. I watch movies and, you know, but I'm never like in awe of stars. I'm not starstruck, right? I'm like, yeah, you know, so even after he passed away, you know, the entire country was mourning and you feel, you know, but you just pass it off as, okay, you know, it was just you. But then almost in less than 45 days, I just started connecting with him. So,
wow.
Or rather, he connected with me and pushed and, you know, till very recently, once in a while, if I think of him in the passing once in 6 months, I know that he will always have a message or there will always be a visitation in some form, in the mildest forms. But I know that he's accessible at any point if I want to.
Wow.
So I did have a chance of encountering, I had few conversations for a very long time with Shweta because after Sushant passed away, of course, while the country was mourning and, you know, I was feeling bad. And then I think after a month and a half, I could start sensing his presence.
Okay.
And it kind of persisted. So usually when I deal with the spiritual realm, if I'm feeling someone's presence and I don't want to interact, it's like a complete setting boundary that do not get in touch with me.
Okay.
With Sushant, in spite of setting boundaries, it persisted. It is a very persistent message for almost 4 to 5 days. So much so that through few people that I know in the industry, I got in touch with them who kind of knew his sister and I reached out to her. And it was kind of because she's mourning, right? She's she's in grief, and someone reaching out, she must have thought I was cuckoo or something, you know. But certain conversations that came up, and you know, so there was this back and forth where I was acting as a medium, and a lot of things that I told Shweta Di that started unfolding in the media. It started unfolding, you know. Things like he would write a diary and the diary was there in the house and like nobody knows about these things, right? That to someone who's never met him, known him. And then we started communicating back and forth. I think there was a lot of closure for her in certain ways, not completely. But yeah, my conversations with Sushant really continued for, it was a very strong spiritual mediumship that actually went on for a while.
How many months?
6 to 8 months. Yeah.
Is he in good space right now?
He's in a good space right now. Disappointed, but he's okay. He's made peace with what it is.
Good to know that. Yeah. You are somebody who taps into the karmic Akashic Records.
That's right.
Now, Akashic Records is something that, you know, for the layman out there to understand, it's something that has been like a blueprint written about everybody, and it's already there somewhere, you know,
in the energy field,
in some energy field, and one can tap into it to understand what is your karmic blueprint all about. But it's not like everybody's cup of tea to just go and tap into people's Akashic Records, is what I understand.
Yes.
How do you do it? Because is it because of the third eye activation that happened to you through your guru?
Yeah.
Was that the catalyst?
I think he opened my third eye at a very early age because he saw that I was carrying some gifts. So the ability to tap into Akashic Record was something that was by birth because I was never taught, right? Like even when you've had an experience where you've seen me do a reading, there's no formula or a scientific, there's no technique. Usually people who learn techniques, it takes years and decades of practice for them to completely tap into it so quick in and out. For me, it was since birth. And because he sensed that I was carrying these gifts, that's why he initiated me for a third eye opening. So I could embody that, right?
Okay.
So today, we are all gifted in some way or the other. But even as a body in this lifetime, to embody that gift so that we can make the most out of it, I think he helped me tap into that. He helped me embody my gift and own my gift.
So when you have your third eye chakra activated or opened, I might assume that you can see different realms.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell us what kind of realms exist and the different stages or levels that one can, the hierarchy that exists?
So we have the human realm, which is physical, which is human form, right, on earth.
Yes.
Then you have, in generic, what we call the astral realm. That's the space of non-physical energies, non-physical beings. Now, in the realm of astral realm, you also have the spiritual realm.
Okay.
So an astral realm is basically, if I have to define it, it's a non-physical realm which has a spectrum of different vibrations.
Okay.
So you have the lower vibrational being also, what we call bhatakti atma in Hindi, or entities. So that is in the lower realm of the astral realm, which is closest to earth because it's more dense, right? Then you have the spiritual realm. Now souls, Preetika, who've passed on, moved on, and who are a high vibrational being, they move into the spiritual realm. Spiritual realm is basically a realm for those souls who've moved into light. They have finished their karma, they've lived a full circle life, and now they're ready to move into the spiritual realm, reunite with their soul groups, other soul family members, and then it is their choice whether they want to take birth, they don't want to take birth.
Okay.
Then above the spiritual realm, we have something which is called the causal realm, and that's the realm of Akashic Records. So if a spirit or someone in the spiritual realms, they wants to incarnate, correct? They will move into the realm of the causal, where they will go and along with the higher masters create a blueprint.
Along with the higher masters?
Along with the higher masters.
Okay.
Then after the causal realm is when you have the realm of angels, ascended masters, all the gurus, be it Shiva, Buddha, Krishna, they are all very, very high beings, right? Closest to one with God. What we call God light. We worship them like God because through naked eyes, we've not seen God, but we know that, God has all these virtues that these masters have.
Right.
So it kind of moves in that hierarchy.
Okay. What about the Devaloka?
That is the ascended masters.
Okay.
So that's the realm of ascended masters. And the reason why we use the word ascended masters is because it's more westernized, more global, right? And my audience is a mix. It's a mix of the younger generation as well as the older generation and global. So we use the word ascended masters because even Jesus Christ, Mother Mary, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Merlin, Maha Avatar Baba, they're all ascended masters.
Right.
But if I say that, Jesus is in Devloka, people will wonder that, what is she talking about?
True.
So it's the same realm but different languages.
How does this Akashic Records operate? Who writes it? And how do you, as an individual sitting here on planet Earth plane, find access to it?
So to answer the first question, Akashic Records are basically charted by any and every soul who wants to incarnate.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a record of all your lifetime experiences. If you've done wrong to somebody, now when we say wrong, it's such a vast term, right? If you've cheated somebody of 10 rupees 10 lifetimes ago, that will be recorded. If you betrayed someone's trust in a personal relationship, that will be recorded. If you've had an abortion or if you abandoned a child, that will be recorded. So every thought, every intention that a body's gone through gets recorded.
Okay.
So when a soul wants to incarnate, that book of records is open, and it's open. You have masters who are protecting that Akashic library, what we call Akasha or Akashic library, or what even in the English term we use as causal realm. So the spirit or the soul will, with the help of a master, the master guides that, okay, you've learned forgiveness, you've learned letting go, but you've not learned how to stand up for yourself. So in this lifetime, it's time for you to learn that lesson. आपने वो lifetime में you cheated on this person and you left your partner. In this lifetime, you have to finish that. So, you will kind of, in a relationship, face betrayal. It could be any form of relationship, not necessarily marriage. Or in this lifetime, you have gained a lot of wisdom, but you didn't help people with that wisdom. So in this lifetime, let me give birth to you with that gift so that you channelize that wisdom. So with the help of masters, we get the power to pick and choose what we want to finish. And they create a blueprint.
Okay.
Now souls of high vibrations get more power, get more choices of free will, saying, in this lifetime, I want abundance.
Okay.
But ये जो betrayal है ना, I'll clear it in another lifetime.
Okay.
Because those masters who are helping form the Akashic Record, see, when you have a high vibration, there is trust. You know that this is a responsible soul who will do this another time. Souls of low vibration don't get that kind of choice of free will. So, एक simple language में समझाओ. Say, when we go to schools के पहले, boards के पहले, we get that prelims.
Yes.
And we get that study leave.
Yes.
Now, if a student has scored 80 or 90 plus in their prelims and they tell the teacher that, can I study my syllabus from home? Let me not come to school for 15-20 days. The teacher will be like, okay. Why? Because the teacher knows that this is a brilliant, responsible, committed student.
Yes.
But if someone who scored a 35 or a 32% or a 45% says that, okay, teacher, I'm going to go home and sit and study, the teacher will be like, no, you have to study in front of me.
Right.
Why? Because the child has not proven their commitment or their responsibility, right? Because if they were committedly studying or responsible enough to study, they would have not scored 40%.
True.
So, students who have high scores get more choice of free will. And students who have not scored that well, they don't have a choice of free will. It's the teacher calling the shots. It's the teacher taking the decisions.
Okay.
Right? Similarly, it's the same thing for the souls. Souls who have a higher vibrational frequency, they have a choice in their akashas.
Okay.
Souls with a low vibrational frequency have lesser choices.
How do you access somebody's Akashic record?
That's a question I can answer and not answer because it's an experience, right? Because like I said, there's no technique. It comes to me very naturally.
Okay.
And we will also talk about this at some point. I know that maybe in some lifetime, and maybe that's what my master picked up, that in some lifetime, I have done that kind of dhyan or I've attained that kind of knowledge, but maybe I never channelized it. So these gifts that I carry were developed in some lifetime. So maybe in this lifetime, it's also part of my records that I need to help people, right, with that gift. How do I just have to close my eyes and connect to the person. I usually, in my formal session, I take their full name, but irrespective, like people are like, but my name before marriage, after marriage is something else. I've changed the spelling. My name on passport is something else. I said, it doesn't matter. It's more like the voice of the person.
Okay.
And I just connect and I just start downloading. Now, how I download, Preetika, either I get visions or then I'm hearing. If you notice during our interaction, sometimes I was closing my eyes.
Yes.
Which means I'm getting a vision.
We did a session before we started the podcast.
Yeah. So sometimes I was just closing my eyes and answering your question. And sometimes I was looking at you with my eyes open and answering the question.
Right.
For me, it happens either clairaudient or clairvoyant.
Okay. So you could also pinpoint, she could also pinpoint dates with month, so she was telling me about in this month and this month this would happen, in this month this would happen, in this month. So like, how do you get those? Is it like a clairaudient?
I literally get those dates.
In your year? Or
in my year. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I hear it.
Sometimes, okay. Clairaudience is something I can personally relate to.
Yeah.
Somewhere I am clairaudient, but I regret that I haven't listened to that voice. When I heard it, I ignored it, which was the mistake I have done in the past.
Or
something.
Of course. Again, but you know what happens, Preetika? As we grow older and we get these senses, fear takes over. Logical mind takes over, So yes, in your case, the experience that you narrated, of course, that's what I call clairaudience. That you're picking up things through sound. But maybe there's a part of you that you're too scared to tap into that.
Yeah.
And that's also a lot of people, and it is a proven fact that children from the time that they are born to the time they are 10, 11, they perceive the spiritual world. They can see their past life. They can see spirits around them. They can see angelic realms. There have been cases, many cases, where you'll find a 4 or a 5-year-old child talking about their past life and talking about taking their parents to where they stayed in their past life. So till the time that we are 10, 11, 12, we have access to the Akasha. We have access to what we went through in our past life. We have access to the angelic realm or spiritual realm. But human logic takes over, because in human logic form, anything that we cannot see equivalents to the unknown, right?
Okay.
And we are built on fear of the unknown.
Right. So you have also, I've heard that you accessed your, the star seed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That you came from?
Syrian.
Syrian.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew somebody who said that she was from Pleiades.
Yeah.
But what is this concept of star seed?
Okay. So star seeds are basically souls who've originated in another galaxy, on another planet, or another star seed.
Okay.
We know that we are not alone in this universe, right? Earth is not the only planet, or the Milky Way galaxy is not the only planet that has life.
Yeah, galaxy that exists. There are so many other galaxies out there.
There can be a complete replica on Earth in some other galaxy called something else, right?
Yes.
So starseeds are souls of that origin who have chosen to come on Earth in human form to help mankind in some way or the other. And there are different types of star seeds. Their origin is different. So one type is Ceres.
So is it like something like the nakshatra constellations? Are you talking about that?
I'm talking about that. So it can be a different galaxy also.
Okay.
Or it can also be a star origin. Like Ceres is a star, but a Palladian is a planet. Arcturian is a planet. So it really depends. You have life on stars as well. It's just that NASA and this, astronauts have to prove it. But soon, in the next 10 years, I am sure there's going to be discoveries. It's just that they've not looked enough.
Right.
We are only looking at planets to discover humanity and traces of life.
Right.
But if you're to discover traces on stars of any form of life being, I'm sure they'll find.
Would you be able to describe your life in that star seed?
Yeah. So there are like, coming back to different kinds of star seeds. Can we talk about that first?
Sure.
So a Palladian, like you rightly said, Palladians, their nature, their energy is very soft. They hold a lot of love, compassion, kindness. So when they come on Earth, that's their message. I want to spread love, kindness, compassion. I would associate maybe, His Holy Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa with those kind of energies. because you're here to spread that message of kindness, compassion, humanity. Then you have Arcturians. Arcturians are basically those souls who've come on earth either to evolve in the healing space or the technology space.
Okay.
So researchers, doctors, neuroscientists, technologists, or highly evolved doctors who've made remarkable discoveries in terms of research and development in the healing or the scientific space.
Okay.
Then you have Andromeda. Andromeda are free-spirited, artistic, super creative beings, who are here to bring in a lot of feminine energies, creativity, a free flow in their life. I can think of M.F. Hussain or, a lot of these artists, right, who are super creative. And my artists are not only talking about painters, they could be any form of artist, right? Da Vinci for that matter. And then you have Ceres. I associate with the Syrian planet. So Ceres are the one who have a lot of esoteric knowledge and they come with a lot of protection.
Okay.
So maybe that's the gift I have, where it's a lot of esoteric knowledge, that may be something that I'm born with, something that comes to me very natural. So there are different kinds of star seeds and the roles also they play are very different.
So was it through astral travel that you went into this space?
Yeah.
What happened? Like, can you explain to us?
So astral traveling is basically accessing realm of non-physical form or consciousness.
Okay.
Consciousness is not only in our brain or in our body. There's consciousness everywhere. The sun has its own consciousness. Every soul has its own consciousness, which has not been embodied in physical form always. Having said that, my growing up, my personal experiences as a child when I was 9, 10, 11, with the help of my master, because I would experience certain things like every night as a kid, I would take my grandmother's dupatta, tie it as a cape, and I would go and just lie down on the roof of my car and just gaze at the stars. And I always knew that that's home for me. There was something about it that I can't explain, but as a child, I remember that that's home for me. And I would just keep looking at the stars. And when I described this to my master, actually my mom brought it up, so when I described it to him, he took me through an astral traveling process very early. And it was like a state of hypnotherapy, where I was describing what I was seeing, what I was hearing, whom or what I was encountering. And that's when I got to know that I was Ceres. And then after that, he kind of guided me through astral traveling. He taught me how to do it. And then I started doing it. And it happens very naturally. And everybody, I would say almost all souls have experienced astral traveling, because in the realm of astral traveling or the process of astral traveling, you can visit any non-physical world, because in the realm of astral traveling, the law of physics, gravity doesn't apply. So you can fly, you can teleport, you can go meet loved ones in a different country. You can go have an encounter with your spirit guide or a deceased family member, and your soul comes back into the body. We all at some point in our sleep felt that jerk, like something either leaving our body or coming back into our body. Even, I'm sure we've all had those dreams where we feel that we are just falling or we are taking a step and you feel that jerk, like someone's pulled your leg or you've had a fall. That's the significance of the soul exiting and coming back into your body.
Okay.
Or, sometimes a family member may call you up saying, oh, I saw you in my dreams and you and me were sitting and having a cup of coffee, or you said this to me, I dreamt of you. That's astral traveling. So every time someone dreams of you, but it feels like a real life experience or a conversation, it means that your soul has actually traveled to them while your body was sleeping to have an encounter with them. Now, in the same way, you can have a human experience, right? Where you're visiting family members, friends, or you can have an astral experience where you can visit these star seeds. Even when we were talking about the astral realm, you have the Akasha, the causal realm, you have the realm of, Devlok or ascended masters. Sometimes you dream that Hanumanji's come to see you, or Shivji, or you've dreamt being in a certain temple. So these are all experiences of astral traveling.
Were you at that age able to describe how those beings looked or appeared?
Absolutely, because I've done that so many times.
Okay.
So Ceres, it's a blue star. So everything is blue. The trees are blue. Everything is blue. And when I saw the movie Avatar, I was like, this is actually derived on Ceres. If you see the entire project, like the entire movie, that's actually based on the concept of astral traveling, where they try to take the human consciousness, not the body, the consciousness, and give it an experience of a different realm. And the tree that, the tree of life that they've shown in the movie Avatar, I had seen that tree when I was a kid. Seen myself sitting on the branches of that tree, because that's the tree on which the entire series or the Syrian planet survives, or the star seed survive. So we all somewhere derive a lot of energy from that, what we call tree of life. It's a metaphor, but there is a source of energy that kind of refuels all of us.
Wow. This always, brings back, and I've always said this in my podcast, especially with people who speak the same language as she is. Here on the earth plane, we are stuck with our identities, with religion, being primary focus as an identity. And I always keep wondering, there's so many thousands of galaxies out there, possibly. What could be their religion? And I always keep saying that, would they even speak the language that we do here in, our country, our native language? Their association and their interpretation of God Almighty and the names that they associate God Almighty with would be so different from ours. So I always keep saying that we here, have this divide policies between us, and we keep disassociating ourselves with this one bond of humanity that we all, share equally. And we only associate ourselves with our religious identity.
So true.
And I keep wondering that this aspect would differ once we leave this earth plane and go somewhere else. So why not just, bond and be connected with this entire, you can say, frequency of humanity, instead of identification with a religion or a cult or a belief system. If people even realize this, I would hope and pray that there would be so much more peace and positivity.
Of course. And I just, to add to whatever it is that you said, Preetika, people also need to understand that when all this religion was formed or made, these ascended masters never came and told us that now I'm going to die, but you have to talk about my preachings.
Right.
Shiva never came and said that, now I'm, a light of God, or I'm a high vibrational frequency, you have to. So please understand that all these ascended masters that we worship in form of religion are teachings or virtues. Religion was only made for humanity, for human form, to follow certain virtues that will take us towards God light.
Right.
In Jainism, we talk about empathy and sensitivity. Don't harm people. In a generic Hinduism, or if you're talking about Krishna consciousness or what Krishna Bhakti is talking about being honest and speaking your truth. In the Shiva consciousness or Shiv Bhakti, we talk about the third eye. We talk about destructing or demolishing the ego. In Islam, we talk about fear God because you're answerable to Him. In Sikhism, I'm a Sikh, we talk about oneness and equality.
Right.
In Christianity, we talk about kindness and compassion. So if you're to kind of take the learning out of it, these are the virtues that once every soul develops, those are the virtues of God light, right? But then again, the interpretation of religion has been lost to human selfishness, and people are using religion as a sensitive point to gain power and to control human consciousness. It was not formed for us so that we go through separation and identity. It was just formed so that we collectively learn these virtues to kind of master these virtues so that we can rise in a high vibrational frequency to be one with God. Every religion only talks about being one with God, but that as human race we've completely forgotten.
True. A lot of people might see my podcast, my spiritual podcast, and think that, oh, she promotes Sanatan Dharma, but I do not. I actually believe in our Indian culture, the Vedic way of life, which I think has huge, it has a huge amount of depth in it, science in it, because I feel that these people in the past, the ancient people in India who were astrologers, who were, rishis, I feel that they were enlightened in a very different way, where they had access to these Akashic records and they could, describe the universe. And like I always say in my podcast, they could describe the solar system and the stars and the planets and everything, so many thousands of years back in our manuscripts. So I do not promote any kind of Sanatan Dharma in my podcast. It's purely understanding our reality, our true self. That's it. So we've spoken about Akashic Records, we've spoken about your third eye activation. I'm also keen to know, you have in another podcast spoken about your experiences of seeing other beings, lower beings and also spirits. But I'm more curious to know, have you had any vision or experience seeing Devis and maybe Devas? The reason I'm asking you this is because my grandmother would have these experiences. She has seen Devas and Devis. Basically, she's seen two Devis. One is Annapurna Devi and she's also seen Lakshmi. And she was a very no-nonsense person, very well educated, and she was not somebody who would get into these things just to for attention. So, and I completely 100% believe that she did have these experiences. So have you had any experiences like that where you've seen visions?
A lot. And for me it started very early, and if anyone is to say that I'm saying this for attention, trust me not. I'll tell you why. Because years ago, and I'm talking about in 2010, 11, 12, that time we didn't have Facebook or Instagram. Facebook was very new. We had blogging, Blogspot.
Right.
At that point, because I didn't have an outlet, I would go and channel information. So for me, growing up, it was always Buddha, Avatar Baba, or Sai Baba once in a while. I've connected a lot with Jesus. So if you go back to my Blogspot, उस time Tamanna C Blogspot होता था. It's all there, channeled messages. And I've kept it under wraps because I don't think people around me or the world was ready for that kind of information. Today, we can talk about it very candidly, but us time people didn't even know the meaning of what channeling is. But to answer your question, yes, I have all the time interacted with higher beings, ascended masters, devis, devtas, at different phases of my life, Preetika. It's been different Devis and Devtas. I've had a very close encounter with Buddha, with Sai Baba, with Avatar Baba, Jesus Christ, Mother Mary. Every night before I would sleep, I would just feel her hand running on my head. And I also have a past life experience. We'll talk about that much later. And Shiva, I'm a Sikh, but I physically, and it happened in Dubai for me years ago, 2014 or 15, I was in Dubai, and I've always had clients there. So one of my clients called me up saying, Tamanna, I need space clearing in my house. And I refused. I never ever go to a client's house unless and until I know that, okay, there's something really drastically wrong where I need that to be physically present. Usually I do it energetically or distantly.
Okay.
I refused. And in the night when I was sleeping, I could see myself ringing the door and I could see her nameplate. So next morning I called her up saying, listen, send me your address. I dreamt about coming to your house, so which means it's a sign that I need to be there.
Okay.
And she was like, okay, come. She got me picked up, went to a house. It was a beautiful villa. And I did the space clearing, and she had a garden. So all I told her, she's like, have lunch and go. I said, you lay lunch, give me 5 minutes. I just need to release and ground my energies, right? So I was alone in the garden and I was just doing my meditation, because even when I'm healing and cleansing, I'm picking up a lot of energies. So I was just doing my grounding. And I closed my eyes, and I still remember that day. It was afternoon, the sun was bright. I could literally see Shiva, the Adi Yoga, just like 100 feet, 60 feet, just coming in front of me. And I was like, and then I'm like, are you here? And he's like, I called you here. And I could just feel a lot of energy from his hand into my third eye. That was my first encounter with Shiva. After that, every time I have closed my eyes and I've said Om Namah Shivaya, I see the Kailasha. There have been times, very few times after this particular incident, that I've had breakdown moments, and I'm a very strong person. I break down mentally or emotionally, but kabhi hota hai that a part of your soul is broken, where wo siskiya leke you're crying and crying and crying. There's an outlet. And I said, where are you? And I could see the most father energy Shiva just hug me, and I could feel every nerve of his bicep, and it was just that warm. And so things like these. When I was married, we were not planning to we wanted to have a child, but I just got married, and we were like, we'll wait for a year till we plan a child. And every time I would sit with my jap mala, and I'm also a Guruji Bhakt, which, Delhi Wale Guruji, which a lot of people follow. And he's also a follower of Shiva. So I would do the mantra jap, the Shivji jap. And at that point, I connected with Parvati Ma, or she connected with me, where during my meditation, the only thing I would see was Shivji, Parvati Ma, and Parvati Ma holding a baby and putting it on my lap. All the time. Every time I close my eyes to do the jap, I would encounter that. I would open my eyes, and in my London house, we had a mirror ka jo console hota hai na, but it's got mirror. So the mandir was on top of that, and I would sit on the floor.
Okay.
So if I would open my eyes, I would see my reflection, because I'm sitting on the floor, samne mirror, and the murti is here.
Okay.
I could see a Trishul formation every time.
On you?
On my forehead. And I've clicked pictures and I've sent it to my best friend, and she's like, I can see it too. I don't have those pictures now, but aisa kafi hua hai. And I would see Parvati Ma giving me that child. Cut to, in 3 months I was pregnant. And it was not even like planned, I've had dreams of Kamakya temple, and I was going through a very difficult phase in my life. And they say that with Kali energies, you can't worship her. She needs to call out to you. And Kali is a very strong, feminine, aggressive energy. And at that point in life, the phase I was going through, I needed that, a little bit of that aggression. I needed that protection. I needed that little bit of that extra energy, not the feminine energy, but a little more stronger than the feminine energy. And I dreamt about this place. And I didn't know what it is, because no one in my family has ever heard of Kali. Again, we are like Sikhs, right? My father goes to the Gurdwara every day of his life. I've heard of Durga Ma or, the Vaishno Devi Ma. We've been to Vaishno Devi, but Kali was something I'd never seen a Kali Murti in my life. I dreamt of this 2-3 times back to back in 10 days, and I didn't know what it was. And it was the ancient grey stone temple, but I knew it was a Kali.
How old were you?
I must have been in my early 30s.
Okay.
Late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine, at that point, I was supposed to meet him, and he's like, no, I can't meet you tomorrow. I'm going to Kamakhya. I'm like, what's that? He's like, I go there every month without fail. I've been doing that last 6-7 years. I said, where is that? He's saying it's in Guwahati. And something just resonated. So I Googled Kamakhya, and it was exactly the same images that I saw in my dream. And then I went to Kamakhya 3 times. But that was also a phase, because when that phase got over, I could not connect with Kali energies. It was only for that phase. So recently, it's been a lot of Hanuman energies. I've always listened to Hanuman Chalisa last 15 years. But recently, about 7 months ago, is when I actually encountered his physical presence. So I've had a lot of these, physical presence, as in you can see them, like.
Is it?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of these visitations, experiences, some very powerful ones, some very neutral. Every time there's a visitation, it does not have to be for a purpose. Sometimes they're just blessing you or just guiding you, telling you that I'm there, have faith. So yes, a lot of these, like I gave you the example of the temple that just happened, before coming here. Yeah. So these little indications are all, and every time I encounter a temple, the only message I get is, you've come to me. Like they were waiting, So it's been a beautiful journey.
So I want to speak about cleansing energy, in your own space, especially your house. Yeah. A lot of people constantly keep changing homes because they are on rent, and they end up entering spaces which are maybe closed for a year or 2.
Yeah.
And then you just enter that space, and then some people just start living in there.
Yeah.
Now, one of the experiences that I want to, tell my audience here is about my grandfather. He wrote a book, my great-grandfather, okay, that's my dad's dad. He wrote a book, and of course, that was, the British colonial period in India. But he was in Burma, so there was a lot of British influence. So he wrote this book in, British English. He's also spoken about his experience living in Burma and changing houses, where his son used to fall ill constantly. Yeah. And it was because of this spirit in the house, and the spirit occupied a space which was near a washroom. And every time, the member of the family entered the washroom to use it, the spirit was disturbed and didn't like that. So it gave illness to my grandfather, that's my dad's dad. And when, this thing started becoming like a pattern, he would take consultations from people there in Burma. There was this lady who guided him, and she told him about this spirit, and then they did a puja. So my great-grandfather was under this belief that when you enter a house space, you have to do this particular puja, and he said that even in the Burmese tradition,
Yeah.
it was very similar to, offering a lot of doing this kind of, I don't know what the ceremony was, but it was like offering a lot of food and all of, and there were, these chantings that they would do, which was very similar to our Sanskrit chantings.
Yes.
So, do you also believe in that direction, or is there any other way that one can cleanse, if not you, because you would do it differently?
Yeah. So, I do believe in everything that you said, Preetika. Even in Hindu, we have Grah Pravesh, we do the Havan. Now, why we do the Havan? Or why we do any kind of, be it Burmese chanting or Buddhist chanting or Hindu chanting, there's the fire, you're using all elements, right? Is because fire burns any form of density. It's, again, it's an element which is super cleansing. It helps in cleansing. That's why even when you go to the mandir, a mandir is a place where people are just leaving their density behind, their problems behind, right? But still the vibrations are so good because of the diya, agarbatti, all of that.
Yeah.
Any temple, any gurdwara you enter, there will always be fire.
Okay.
Why? The gods have not told us to light a diya.
Right. Even the Parsis have the fire
temple.
Yeah.
Because fire burns density. Matter, jisko bolte hai.
Okay.
So that's one reason. Now, all these chants, fruits that we offer, chanting, music, fire, basically helps raise the vibration of the space.
Okay.
Now, what we call in Hindi bhatakti atma, or the astral souls who are stuck in the astral realm, they are stuck because they do not have enough of vibration to move into the spiritual realm.
Okay.
So when you're increasing the vibrations of the space, you are creating space for that atma or for that astral entity to pull out energy from that space and move into that. So it's like transportation, right?
Okay.
So say you want to go from point A to point B, but you don't have enough fuel in the car. You just need that extra 2 liters of fuel so that you can reach your destination. That's what all these havans and pujas and these mantras and fire is all about. That it increases and uplifts. It clears out the density, all the negativity or density, or what we call matter. You have matter and then you have energy. So it lightens and creates space for the lighter energies to enter.
Okay.
And through that light vibration or a higher vibration created in that room, the entity or the bhatakti atma, as we call it, release. So that's the science behind it.
Okay.
For me, simple tips that I would give is sage smudging. It's a very old shaman ritual. You can also use agarbatti, but sage is far more powerful. Salt. Salt is the purest form of mineral.
Okay.
So just keeping salt in rock salt, I would say, pink salt, rock salt, in glass bowls in different corners of the room, under the bed, or in one room you can keep a bowl and keep flushing that out every 24 hours or 48 hours and keep refilling salt. Mantras, any kind of mantra. I specifically believe in Hanuman Chalisa because Hanuman is the Rakshak. Hanuman energies are the protectors.
Okay.
Right? You can't play a Lakshmi mantra for energy clearing. Or will you play a Hanuman Chalisa because you want to attract wealth in your life?
No.
So, Hanuman is the protector. So, I would say listen to the Hanuman Chalisa. So, keep playing it at home if at all you feel the house is very dense. Also, visualization.
Okay.
Closing your eyes and visualizing pillars of white light in the corners, like 4 pillars of your house, and visualize that it is forming a dome-like structure in the roof. So you're sealing your house with pure white light vibration. And also crystals, amethyst works, tourmaline works, selenite works. So there are different ways that you can work. You can even work with affirmations that, you call upon higher beings, call upon archangels, ascended masters, any master that you, any devi or devta that you believe in, and just ask them to clear the space of all the density, only to keep filling that house with vibrations of abundance, good health, harmony in relationships, whatever you want to invoke. Every person has a different affirmation, right?
Okay.
So there are so many ways that you can work around.
Some people have, especially in India, and of course, it's a culture in most cultures, they keep the photograph of somebody who's passed on in their homes on the wall.
Yeah.
Is it good to do that, or it's a complete no?
It's good to do that if you are done grieving with it.
Okay.
And it's a neutral that you've put the picture just for respect or wanting their blessings. But if you're looking at the picture and feeling that sadness, that void, that guilt, that vacuum, that attachment, then don't put it. Put the picture only once you're done grieving and once you've made peace with the loss.
So some people who, have passed on, their relatives, their immediate, relatives may get into this habit of, trying to talk to them. Is that bad, or is that something that should not be done?
See, if it's happening organically, where if they're marking their presence around you and intuitively they're around you, you can telepathically communicate, that's great.
Okay.
But don't forcefully, like I've seen people trying to forcefully do auto writing or picking up the pen and paper and, or, how you have the Ouija board. Back in the day while we were growing up, we had that Ouija board to call spirits, and don't do any of that. That's something I'm completely against, because it can be quite detrimental to your own health, to your life as well, because that's also when possessions happen or entity attacks happen, right? So if it's happening organically, pursue it. But if it's not happening organically, don't force it, because you're disturbing the other realm.
Okay. So how do you protect yourself from entity attack, and how do you protect yourself from nazar, which is the evil eye?
Yeah. So nazar, first of all, I would say is white light protection, salt water bath, listen to Hanuman Chalisa every morning. So in the morning, first thing when you wake up, you already have the protective shield around you.
Okay.
And be discreet.
Okay.
The more information you give out to the world about anything that's happening in your life, anything that you're planning a holiday, you're planning a party, you're going to get a promotion, you're starting a new job, do not tell people till the time it's not happened. So, thumb rule I would say is, before you do the protection energetically, physically keep your mouth shut. Once it's happened, of course, you can share the news with loved ones. But till the time it's not happened, people don't need to know. So that's for nazar. In terms of protection from entity attacks, you need to keep cleaning your aura. Entity attacks can happen to anyone and everyone whose aura becomes weak.
Okay.
So keep visualizing yourself in a ball of white light that extends 4 to 8 feet outside of your body.
Okay.
And then visualize your entire body in white light.
Okay.
And I would say saltwater bath, but saltwater bath does not technically help with entity clearing. It helps if the entity is released, then saltwater bath will help. But if you have an entity attached and if you're going on having a saltwater bath, it won't help. So then you have to wait for the entity to let go of you, or then you have to go to a healer or someone who can detach or cut that cord with that entity.
Okay. And a salt water bath, for people who are wondering how to do it, don't do it this way. It's only on your body, not on the head.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one is not supposed to have a plain water bath after a salt bath, right?
Yeah. That's also true. And also, I mean, there are so many people, I won't say they're lazy, but they don't have time to constantly go for a saltwater bath. Not everyone has a bath after a long day at work. Just take salt in your hands, rock salt.
Okay.
And just rub it for 2 minutes
Okay.
And just saying an affirmation that I'm letting go of everything that doesn't belong to me. And I'm cleansing it, and just wash your hands under water and just like rinse it. Even that salt scrub is good enough to begin with.
Makes sense. It's sounds to me very similar, like doing the nazar,
yeah.
With salt on our own self.
Yeah, yeah.
But the usual nazar, it works, right?
It does work. It definitely does work.
Okay, that's a very typical Indian way of, taking out the evil eye, where you take salt in your hand and
you do it clockwise 7 times.
Yeah, you do it clockwise 7 times on somebody who is sitting in front of you, and then you throw it.
Yeah, you rinse it or you flush it.
Yeah, you can rinse it or flush it and wash your hands properly after that. On that note, I will take your leave because she has a flight to catch to Dubai right after this podcast. So thank you, Dr. Tamanna.
Thank you, Preetika, for being so patient and waiting for me to do this in person.
No, not at all. The pleasure is entirely mine. And I do spiritual podcasts and astrology podcasts, and I trended astrology podcasts on social media in India in 2024. And it's going on. So if you like astrology and you're keen to know about my astrology podcast, you can follow my channel. And I have like amazing spiritual podcasts, and we just had one. So yes, you can subscribe. Lots of love.